Hello and welcome back to Brands Hatch for the final time in 2020 then, as we take a look at the Radical Challenge Cup for just ahead of the last race of the 2020 season and the last race of the day, which is going to be a 50-minute endurance race. Don't forget, if you've been following the season, you'll know that it was all wrapped up last weekend at Snetterton when Marcus Cluton took the overall win. So all eyes then have been on who is going to put themselves on the next step of the podium in second place. And at this moment in time, with one race to go, it is that man there. It is Jason Rishover, who is now sitting on 600 points. Coming into the weekend though, it was all about Shane Stoney, and it was looking like all he had to do was just get behind the wheel of the car, do the races, and it would all be said and done. But excitingly now, Jason Rishover jumps to 600 points. Shane Stoney finds himself on 592 points with one race to go. This is an endurance race as well, don't forget. 50 minutes they're going to run in this, and then they have the mandatory pit stop. Not to change tyres or refuel, but the mandatory 45 seconds plus their success seconds based on the previous race. So a lot of time for a lot of things to happen, even though the cars in the field, there's only 7, 8 or 9 of them in fact. 7 in the class for the solo drivers and 2 in the team class then. But a lot of time for a lot of actions to take place, and while we're waiting for them to go out, let's just go and grab a word with Jason, even as we speak. Jason, I don't want to put you off, but you're sitting in second at the moment. You have moved ahead of Shane Stoney, and it's going to be tight right down to the wire. Final race of the season.
It is, yeah, very excited. Just got to keep focused.
And it is a long time to keep focused, the endurance race. Are you relishing the prospect, or do you wish this was all said and done in 20 minutes?
So again, sorry.
It's a 50-minute race, but would you rather be just heading out for a quick 20-minute sprint race?
Yeah, I've just got to stick in there the whole time. You're right, it's a long race, so just, as I say, got to stick in there.
Jason, I'll leave you to it. You're in the zone. Best of luck, my friend. So good luck to Jason. Like I say, he's on 600 points at this point in time. Let's get up to the front of the grid as well. But while we've got them, they might go out any moment now. The gates are open. The marshals look like they're getting set to go. This man, though, the man of the hour from 360 Racing, car number 52, Mark Richards. 2 first places so far, fastest laps in the last one. He's running in the 126s when everyone else seemed to be running for most of the race in the 128s. Mark, fantastic weekend for you. Are you looking to make this 3 from 3?
Well, I'm obviously going to do it my best. Shay, I've got 20 success seconds and Shay's got none, but he's starting from the back, so in and around the pit stops it might get interesting.
And you were linking the car up really nicely on that last race there, taking the fastest lap. As I just said, you're running in the 126s. Most of the field are running in 128s. What are you doing that's so well this weekend?
And the main thing is the car's beautifully set up, so you just feel like you can push, and it doesn't feel like you're on the limit. So I'm going to do that again in this race and see how we get on.
Well, best of luck. That's Mark there, number 52, 360 Racing. He doesn't have a long journey home coming from London, but one man who does have a further journey home, Shane Stoney from Yorkshire down the far end. He'll be hoping that he can just get himself ahead of Jason Rishover. That's where he started the weekend, but at the moment he sits just those 8 points behind. Let's have a quick word with Elliot Goodman as well, because Elliot at the moment, Elliot, you've got yourself a third, a second. Surely this is the race where you can get first, isn't it?
Well, that's what we're aiming for, yeah. With Mark's success seconds in the pit stop, hopefully that will help out.
Absolutely. We're finishing in the sunshine here in 2020. All in all, it's been a fairly good season for you?
Yeah, it's been okay. Had a few podiums, which is always good.
Well, best of luck for this one. We can hear the engine starting up, so we'll let you get in the zone. So yeah, all around the engine's starting up, the sun has been shining. If you're with us for the last couple of races, yesterday they had a moment or two where we thought the wet weather tyres were going to go on, and that created a little bit of an issue. In this one, a 50-minute endurance race, they're likely to have it in the sunshine the whole way as we wait for them to go out. Just over man's shoulder, I can see the marshals here at Brands just coming in. It looked like a car had gone off being towed back into the pits. Of course, it's not just the Radicals running here this weekend. There's a whole host of action going on here at Brands, so make sure you stay across their social media channels to see what else is going on, and of course the Radicals social media. If we do have another moment, let's gamble and come right down to the end here and see if we can grab a word with Shane Stoney, because he's had 2 7th places, but coming into this one, he was in 2nd place in the championship overall. He probably thought all he had to do was just keep it on track and it would have gone brilliantly for him. Fair to say the car has not been running well. Shane, just before you go out, once again dogged by car troubles in that last one.
Yeah, it's just not been my weekend, unfortunately. Yeah, we got stuck in 4th gear, so I thought it was the wheel, because sometimes you do get issues with the wheel every now and again, but it turned out it was the actual selector in the gearbox that had let go, or a bearing for it. So yeah, we sort of managed to get the car into 4th gear, and I just drove around and tried to get some points. And yeah, I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. I want to. I've got no pit stop penalty for this one, so I'm going to go out and try my absolute hardest and give it my best shot to try and win this race. So.
Well, you did the right thing going for the points in that last one, because the deficit is just 8 points between yourself and Jason Rishover. So still all to play for. You can finish in the second step on the championship if it all just goes well in this last one.
Yeah, if I get some luck, we'll see where we end up. But yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just going to go out and try and win this race. So that's what I've been trying to do all weekend, and unfortunately it just never quite happened. So we'll see if we can go out on a high.
Well, best of luck to you. There we go. So Shane Stoney hoping to go out on a high as the sun continues to beam down here at Brands. 7 cars then in the solos, and then just the 2 team cars there. Car number 7, Alden Goodmanson, who put it off, of course, in the last race in the gravel, had to get towed out. Now I think Tom Ashton starting in that one there. We are just waiting still here on the grid. I'm looking all around. We could go to where with John McLeod if we want, number 14. Oh, hang on, here we go. There is a marshal waving even as we speak. I'll step out the way so you can get a shot and see what goes on as we're live here at Brands. Blowing the whistle and sending them out then for this one. Don't forget, a 50-minute race in prospect with the mandatory pit stop and those success seconds into play. Just waiting for the last 2, 4, 5 cars to go out. And at this point, what I'll do is I'll hand over to the man for the final time this season who has all the answers. He's done lots of maths ahead of this one, so I'll let him try and work out all the connotations of what could happen for the final one in 2020. And that's our race commentator, Mark Werrell.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, all the answers, not sure about that one. Done the maths, yes. Are they correct? Who knows? But we'll have a go at it. So the car's coming onto the grid for the final race of the season for the 2020 Radical Challenge Championship. Let's guide you through the way that they line up and tell you about the success seconds that they have to serve in the pit lane. On pole position, it's already twice a race winner this weekend. Car number 52, Mark Richards, sits on pole position. He has got 20 additional seconds to spend in the pit lane. All of the cars have to remain stationary for 45 seconds. Well, for Mark, add another 20 for that. 65 seconds he'll be stationary in the pit lane. Alongside him is number 28, Elliot Goodman, who has got an additional 10 seconds to spend stationary in the pit lane. The second row of the grid, number 14, we didn't quite get the chance to have a chat to him, John McLeod, who has an extra 5 additional seconds to spend in the pit lane, so he'll be stationary for 50 seconds in total. And alongside, second in the championship standings now, but only by 8 points, it's Jason Rishover, an extra 15 seconds he will have to remain stationary. The next row of the grid should be car number 31, Rod Goodman, but it looks as though there might be a gap there on the grid towards the middle of it, so not entirely sure that Rod Goodman is going to make it out. His car, if it does appear, an extra 15 seconds it will have to remain stationary. And alongside is number 80, which is going to be Peter Tyler. No additional time penalty for Peter to worry about. The fourth row of the grid, now this is the first of the 2 driver cars. It's number 49. That car will be started by Jason Green. No additional time penalty, I don't think, for that car to worry about. And alongside is number 89. We've just heard from him. Shane Stoney was lying second in the championship standings coming into this one, has dropped to third, and ideally, as he had said to Kevin Harris there in the assembly area, wants to try and win this race. He's got no success seconds to worry about, so he can push as hard as he needs to. And the final row of the grid, it's number 7, Tom Ashton, who is going to start at the wheel of the number 7 car, which is the car that Auden Edmondson, the Icelandic driver, pitched into the gravel trap earlier on. So good work done by the team to get that car repaired and serviced and checked and sorted and tick all of the boxes and send the car out in the hands of Tom Ashton to start this race. Now, it is a 50-minute pit stop race. The pit window will open midway through the race, so the pit window opens at the 20-minute mark and then will remain open for 10 minutes. So after 20 minutes, there'll be a sign that's held out, pit lane open. The cars have to pass that board on the track, and the following lap, once they've passed it, then if they wish to, they can conduct their mandatory pit stops. That has to be done, though, in the next 10 minutes, because after the 10 minutes have elapsed, pit closed board goes out. You can still pit as long as you don't pass that board. If you pass that board and you haven't pitted, next time when you come in, it's too late. You've already passed it. You'll be pitting outside of the window, and therefore penalties will be applied. At the end of this one, of course, we then concentrate on the 2021 season. So for the start of that, there'll be no success seconds carried over from 2020 to 2021. The slate is wiped clean in that respect. So cars, light little cars as well, these ones. The minimum weight limit of them all is 700 kilograms. That includes the driver, so the car itself is 620, but there's an 80 kilogram allowance made for the driver in all of their race equipment as well. All of the cars running on standard Hankook tyres in what is sunshine here, but look at the contrast in the skies. Lots of grey skies around, but thankfully it's blue skies that are coming towards us at the moment, and they all run the same fuel as well. They all run a Sunoco controlled fuel as well, so it's very much identical equipment in these Radical SR3s, largely RSXs that are there on the grid, and their Suzuki engines that power them all, best part of 225 brake horsepower. Maximum speed, they won't quite hit it here. Maximum speed on some of the circuits that have longer straights, it's heading towards 150 miles per hour. So Mark Richards looking to try and make it a hat-trick of wins here at Brands Hatch this weekend. We've already seen Marcus Clutton, who is already the champion and not competing this weekend because he's cleaned up the championship. He claimed the win in all 3 races at Donington Park in September. He also repeated that feat just last weekend at Snetterton as well, where he claimed wins in the first endurance race, the sprint race in the middle of the weekend, and overcame the success seconds to win in the 3rd and final race of the weekend. And that is what Mark Richards would ideally like to do. He's not right where he needs to be in terms of the championship standings, because Mark did the first 2 races at Alton Park and Silverstone, but then didn't appear at Donington Park and Snetterton, so the pole sitter is not really there in terms of the championship fight. He'll be something like 7th in the championship standings, I think he'll be now. So side by side up towards the start finish line, the red lights will be illuminated. Mark Richards and Elliot Goodman on the front row of the grid. We're about to get the final race of the Radical Challenge Championship underway for 2020, and as the lights go out, it looked as though Peter Tyler was trying to thread his way through and almost squeeze Shane Stoney onto the grass, but side by side for the lead of the race. And already Mark Richards is beginning to break away from John McLeod, who's up from 3rd position on the grid and into 2nd place. So John McLeod 2nd place. Lock breaks from Jason Rishover as he tried to grab 4th place away and might just lose out here to Tom Ashton, who's trying to pick his pocket. Downhill in towards the braking area for Graham Hill Bend. Mark Richards is already trying to disappear up the road. The progress of Shane Stoney, though, from the back of the grid almost, the number 89 car in the hands of the Yorkshireman. Already he has gained a couple of places, and he's now looking to try and thread his way through and ahead of Jason Rishover. Yet through goes the Yorkshireman ahead of Jason Rishover, who is of course his main championship rival for what will be runners-up spot in the 2020 championship. So the cars starting to sprint their way down towards Hawthorn. Jason Rishover trying to fight back on Shane Stoney as they head up towards Hawthorn, but that's not quite going to work for Jason Rishover on this occasion. However, he now needs to watch his mirrors because he's got Peter Tyler not that far behind as head up towards Westfield. So here's the fight for 2nd and 3rd place. John McLeod under pressure from Elliot Goodman. The brake lights flash on as they tip the car in towards the right-hander at Sheen Curve and then move towards the left-hander that's coming up at Stirlings. So 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th all together at this stage, and this is allowing already Mark Richards, after just 1 racing lap, to break away and gain what is quite a sizable lead here. Now Shane Stoney, who is at the tail end of these 4 cars, the black car with its yellow flashes to the headlamps, looking to try and work his way through and past Tom Ashton. Not going to do it this time though on the run up towards Paddock Hill Bend. So Mark Richards leads after just 1 lap of racing by 4.4 seconds nearly from John McLeod in 2nd place, Elliot Goodman in 3rd, Tom Ashton is 4th and leading the teams category in that white car with the red flashes on it. Shane Stoney sits 4th currently. Well, if he stays in 4th place and Jason Rishover stays in 5th position, I think that means that Jason Rishover is still going to have a 2-point advantage over Shane Stoney for the runners-up spot in the championship. For Shane Stoney, though, the car he needs to deal with is not the car directly ahead of him, because that runs in the teams category, and therefore, if he gets past that car, it's not going to add any more championship points to Shane Stoney, because the solo drivers accumulate points in their class. The shared cars, the team cars, accumulate points in their respective class. So here comes Mark Richards, romping away in the lead of the race. He's almost a second quicker just in the first sector alone. John McLeod under pressure from Elliot Goodman. Then the team car, there goes number 7 Tom Ashton, 4th place but leading the teams category for the shared cars. They bounce over the curbs again as they turn their way through Sheen and up towards the left-hander at Stirling, with Shane Stoney desperate to try and make a little bit more progress here. He might just have to be patient here, Shane Stoney, because he will know that cars ahead of him all have success seconds to worry about. He is now going to be the leading car in this race that, come the pit stop window, will have no additional time to spend in the pit lane. So the race, if he's patient, should, in theory, come to him. The difficulty is that whilst he's bottled up behind these cars fighting over 2nd, 3rd and 4th places, he's losing ground to the race leader Mark Richards, who is now, after 2 laps of racing, 7.1 seconds up the lead. Tom Ashton tried to move on Elliot Goodman round the outside at Druids. That didn't work, and now from attack it's defence, because he's got Shane Stoney sitting right behind him as they head through the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend along the Cooper Straight. Weaving one way, weaving the other goes Shane Stoney. But for the moment, he's just got to, again, just be patient. He gets a good run coming off the corner. That could allow him to pick up a bit of the tow from the car ahead and try and close in as they start to build the speed. Shane Stoney looking to try and unlock the door. Tom Ashton trying to squeeze him, but Shane Stoney's up the inside as they head towards Hawthorn. Place gained for Shane Stoney in the race. No more championship points though at that stage, because the car he's just got through and past runs in the team's category. So for Shane Stoney, he might now be 4th overall in the race, but he still remains 4th in the solo driver category. So the next thing he needs to do is close up on the next car ahead of him, which is going to be that black and gold and red car in the hands of Elliot Goodman, who for the moment is bottled up right behind the car of John McLeod. So see this big train of cars all still together. It's only Mark Richards who's broken away. Through, he's gone already over the start finish line. Mark Richards, 1 minute 28.683 is another new fastest lap of the race. The speeds will continue to improve all of the time, and the lap times will reduce as the tyres heat up to full temperature and the drivers start to relax and get into the groove. 45 minutes of the race to go. John McLeod in 2nd place with his queue of cars still behind him. McLeod, Elliot Goodman, then Shane Stoney, followed by Tom Ashton, the white car with the red flashes, Jason Rishover and Peter Tyler, all still together. So through the left-hander, in what's been, weather-wise, a beautiful day here at Brands Hatch. A crisp sort of autumn day, but you can see the sun glinting off the visors of the drivers as they head down the Cooper Straight and are in the sunshine, turning our way through the left-hander at Surtees. Mark Richards all of the time just pulling away from this group. Now John McLeod is doing enough really to pull away slightly from Elliot Goodman. Elliot Goodman under attack from Shane Stoney, who is under attack again from Tom Ashton, who I thought was just about to try and pull a move there, but opted just to be patient and sit behind at this stage whilst he continues to lead the team's category, albeit the number 7 car is sitting now 5th overall in the race. So out of Sheen Curve up towards Stirling's, the fight for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all still together, the little quartet of cars. Jason Rishover is just that little bit further off the back of the pack and looking to try and close up all of the time, whilst Mark Richards in the lead of the race just gets quicker and quicker and quicker. Another new fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 28.538 means that he now enjoys a lead advantage of 11.7 seconds, 11 and 3/4 seconds. We've only done 4 laps of racing, so on average he's pulling away by nearly 3 seconds a lap from this little train of cars. So Elliot Goodman working hard. He's got Shane Stoney right behind him. Is Shane Stoney going to try anything? No, he looked as though he might be trying it, but again, yeah, just too far away really, the Yorkshireman. So the number 89 car in the hands of Shane Stoney, for the moment lying 4th in class. Jason Rishover lying 5th in class. And that means that if they stay where they are currently, Jason Rishover would be the vice champion, or the runner-up, depending on what you want to call it, in this championship. But if Shane Stoney can get this overtake done, that has massive implications with the mathematics as well. Shane Stoney up the inside of Elliot Goodman. That will now put Shane to 3rd in class, leaves Jason Rishover 5th in class, and that now means that all of a sudden Shane Stoney potentially is mathematically going to be the runner-up in the championship, because he would be on 652 points, and Jason Rishover, if he stays where he is at the wheel of the number 23 car, would be on 648 points, 4 points adrift. So important overtake that for Shane Stoney. That could be the one that keeps him 2nd in the championship. So he's now managed to catch up with the next of the cars, which is John McLeod. All of the time Mark Richards just keeps popping in fastest lap after fastest lap. 1 minute 27.923 now is the fastest lap that he's done. But Shane Stoney, has he got anything more in the tank that he can now throw at John McLeod? Elliot Goodman's also lost a further place as Tom Ashton, the number 7 car, went through, but again that is purely for overall position, doesn't affect the class position for Elliot Goodman. Did when Shane Stoney went through, but didn't when Tom Ashton took the place, because Tom Ashton in the teams category will hand that car over to Auden Edmondson once the pit window opens. And that pit window is still 12 minutes away from opening at this stage. So, through the left-hander at Surtees, Shane Stoney already having taken a place on the run down towards Hawthorn last time through. Finally into the race comes the number 31 car. That was the car that had the gap on the grid, Rod Goodman. He might be 5 laps late, but he finally is able to get himself involved. So the pack of cars sweeping their way around through Hawthorns up towards Westfield, all of the time while Shane Stoney is trying to attack the car ahead of John McLeod, whilst conscious he might need to defend from Tom Ashton that sits behind. 3 as 1 work their way through Sheen Curve. Elliot Goodman at the wheel of the gold liveried car just that little bit further back. But John McLeod has done a cracking job so far. Now Shane Stoney got a really good run coming out of Stirling's there and might have the inside line when they head up towards the braking area for Clearways Corner, and he's gone through. Shane Stoney grabs another position, and that is more championship points again. That now puts Shane Stoney up into 2nd place overall in the race, 2nd place in his class. And for Jason Rishover, he is still languishing down in 5th in his class at this stage. So that now means that Shane Stoney would be on 662 championship points. Jason Rishover still stuck on 648. So Rishover, 23, has to start to make a little bit of progress here. Otherwise, he is going to lose the runners-up spot in the championship. So the train of cars all heading down in towards the braking area for Graham Hill Bend. There is Jason Rishover, the grey coloured car with the blue and the day-glow flashes to it, sitting in the middle of this pack. Next to the cars he'll want to try and thread his way past is Elliot Goodman, but he needs to decide when he wants to do that. Elliot Goodman, ahead of him on the road, will actually remain stationary for 5 seconds less than Jason Rishover. So Shane Stoney starting to pull away all of the time. The back of that pack is Peter Tyler, having a good run. Peter graduated from the Radical SR1 Cup a few seasons ago and has not necessarily had the results he wanted this year in the Radical Challenge Championship, but he's learned quite a lot driving the far more powerful and aerodynamically efficient SR3 over the SR1 that he's been used to for the last few years. So through the left-hander at Stirling's, another new fastest lap of the race for Mark Richards. 1 minute 27.625 now is the fastest lap. Fastest lap, remember, does give an additional championship point in this final endurance race of the season. But what a battle it is. But 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, all still together in this one. And 7th place Peter Tyler, who's latched himself onto the tail end of it. Shane Stoney just disappearing up the road though in 2nd place now, so it's really sort of 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th that are all battling. Shane Stoney is 3.5 seconds up the road from John McLeod, who has done a good job. Might not be the quickest out there, but he's getting cleanly off the corners, and that makes it very difficult for the cars behind to try and squeeze their way through. Shane Stoney managed to do so and is now disappearing. And the gap that we need to consider is the gap between Mark Richards and Shane Stoney. Now, remember, Shane Stoney has no additional success seconds to worry about. The race leader has 20. But at the moment, Mark Richards has built a 17-second gap. Is this a move for Jason Rishover? Yes, side by side with Elliot Goodman as they turn their way through Hawthorn. Did he get the job done? No, he didn't, but the rain is starting to fall, a bit like we saw in one of the other races yesterday. Looks like there's a few sprinkles of rain now out at that back part of the circuit. Sunshine still shining and the track is dry, but if the rain becomes worse, that could really start to hamper conditions, and already I think we're starting to see, the spots of rain are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and off has gone Rod Goodman, I'm afraid. Started the race late with problems. His car wasn't present on the grid. He's only done 3 laps, and off into the gravel trap at Paddock Hill Bend has gone Rod Goodman in these deteriorating conditions. Sun is shining, rain is falling, and the safety car, I'm afraid, is coming out. So that is not at all what Mark Richards would have wanted. So you can see the dark clouds in the sky. Caught out Rod Goodman, and it's also caught out Elliot Goodman, and it's almost caught out Jason Rishover as well. Whoa, must be really, really tricky conditions there at Paddock Hill Bend, because Jason Rishover went sideways. Elliot Goodman almost spun into the gravel, and you can see, the marks on the track where the tarmac is starting to get wet now, whilst Rod Goodman and Jason Rishover spun at the next corner. So he's spun at Paddock Hill Bend. He's now spun at Druids as well, so it must be very, very, very tricky out there. Rod Goodman, the only one that's been caught out at the moment in the gravel, but surely with the conditions deteriorating and the safety car out there, some of the teams and the drivers might opt to switch from the Hankook. Oh, they'll have to. There'll be no choice. Look at the weather now out on the back part of the circuit. The sun, amazingly, is still shining, but the heavens are pouring, and the teams have got no choice now. Surely they're going to have to bring the drivers in and switch them from the Hankook slick tyre onto the Hankook wet, and if they do it, that is before the pit window opens. There's still 6 minutes before the pit window opens, so any pit stops now are going to not count towards the mandatory pit stop that has to take place. But just look at the way that the weather has closed in. It is pouring down on the back part of the circuit, but this bit here is absolutely bone dry. There is no rain at all by the look of things through Dingle Dell and up towards Sheen Curve. Let's just have a look. No, it looks dry at that part of the circuit, so it's very, very localised. Come to this corner, no, and it's raining again here. Yes, it might just be the camera shot. It's not raining as bad though, is it? That is not half as bad through Sheen Curve and Dingle Dell than it is out on the back part of the circuit. So for the drivers, lots of consideration to be had here. Some of them may well be in communication with the teams as well, so it might be a joint decision as to what they're going to do. Is anybody going to dive for the pit lane? Because that could be quite a fortuitous move if they choose to. And as I was saying, this is the one thing that car there, Mark Richards, did not want. He had built a 17-second lead between himself and anybody else, and he knows full well that he's going to have to stop for 20 seconds longer than Shane Stoney, who is in second position in the race when the pit window opens. And of course all of that 17-second lead that he got under safety car is all going to be evaporated to absolutely nothing. So he's got to work even harder now to build the margin and build an advantage at some stage. So there, up towards Hawthorne he goes. The rain still pouring down. Nobody has opted as yet to dive for the pit lane. But as we saw in one of the other races that we've had over the course of the weekend, when you come in to change from slicks to wets, if you choose to, has a pivotal role to play in where you might ultimately end up on the race. If you leave it a lap too long, you could potentially be in trouble. Now the safety car is out there, but the safety car doesn't look as though it's picked up the race leader. Now the first of the cars that's behind the safety car is going to be the number 49 car of Jason Green, that is running in 8th position and is already off the lead lap of the race. Shane Stoney's the second car in the train who rides second in the race. So I think as and when we see our race leader, he will actually be at the back of the train, whereas he should be at the front. So there's some reordering that will need to be done. There's Jason Rishover. Having had his 2 spins, Jason Rishover is now 6th in the class. So that has going to cost him more points. So 6th in his class would mean 644 points for Jason Rishover. And Shane Stoney, 2nd in class, if that's where he stays, will be 662. So the safety car now waving the field by. Have to wave through all of the cars. And all of these cars now having been waved by can't really travel at a great deal of pace, because they're all, remember, on slick tyres on a wet track. They've done a few laps behind the safety car, which will have dropped the tyre temperatures even more. And once you start to lose the temperature out of the slick tyre on a wet track, it makes it very, very difficult to get any temperature back. And the difficulty is, the car that was the first to be waved past by the safety car is Jason Green, who is the driver who started towards the tail end of the field, and maybe with his lack of experience, because new to Radical Racing for this year, Jason Green, who shares this car with Neil Glover, maybe isn't quite as confident travelling at the kinds of pace that some of the drivers behind him would like to do. So there is the race leader, Mark Richards. Safety car will be scooping him up, and then just needs to scoop up the rest of the field, and we are now only 2.5 minutes away from the pit window opening. So I think whilst we're under safety car, I think the drivers probably are going to start to alter what otherwise they might have done. The conditions seem to have improved recently again, and they might just wait until the pit window opens. Shane Stoney urging along there. You could see him gesticulating at Jason Green, saying, come on, let's speed up a bit. We've got to try and catch the safety car train. And at the moment, there's only one car behind the safety car, and that is the race leader. Jason Green has got to go quicker, really, to catch the train ahead. There's the safety car heading through Paddock Hill Bend. Look in the background, so it's a full lap nearly that needs to be done by these cars before they can catch up with the safety car. And if Jason Green doesn't increase his pace, it's going to take a long period of time before all of the cars that were waved past by the safety car are going to be able to catch up with it. So, safety car coming down in towards Graham Hill Brend. The cloud burst looks to have almost stopped now as well, so I think the worst conditions are done and dusted. The safety car is going to have to travel as slowly as it can almost to allow the pack to catch up, and strange sight it makes, just one single car, the race leader behind the safety car, and everybody else, the best part of 3/4 of a lap behind, still trying to catch up, but hampered with their efforts to catch up because Jason Green still, I don't think, is travelling quickly enough so as to close in. So the safety car will still be out for a period of time until everybody has caught up. There's only 1 minute to go though before the pit window opens, so it may well be that's when the window will open, but of course remember that's the first time at which the pit board is held out. All of the cars have to pass the pit window open board before they can pit. So even when we get to 30 minutes, that means the pit window opens, but they have to wait until they've passed the board and would have to do it the lap after. So here's the rest of the pack. So Jason Green still with this queue of cars behind him and is not at the moment travelling at a pace that's going to allow everybody else to catch it. You see Shane Stoney there, you can see how frustrated Shane is. He can't overtake, that's the problem. You are not allowed to overtake under safety car. As frustrated as Shane Stoney is, there's nothing he can do. All he can do is be as animated as he can to Jason Green and hope that Jason sort of understands that we need to try and push on a little bit more. So safety car is almost at a crawling pace, isn't it, down through Dingle Dell. The rest of the pack of cars are heading along the Cooper Straight on the Indy circuit at this stage, so they are still about half a lap behind the safety car, and the pit window has now opened. So Mark Richards will see this time as he comes over the start finish line, he will see the board that says pit window opens, which means that not on this lap but on the next lap he could then pit if he wished to, and that might be something that's advisable to do if the safety car is out there, because stopping for an extra 20 seconds whilst you're under safety car is going to have a far lesser effect than stopping for 20 seconds when the cars are at full racing pace. So I think all of those cars with additional success seconds are probably all going to dive into the pit lane as soon as they can. The circuit almost looks as though it's dry again now. From the heavens opening a few moments ago, it almost looks bone dry. It's going to take a while longer to dry on the Grand Prix circuit because that's sort of covered by trees a little more, and whereas the more open expanse of the Indy circuit is not covered by the trees and is able to bask in the sunshine again, which is now more than present here at Brands Hatch. So all weaving from side to side, still trying to build those tyre temperatures back up again. Still all of them just queuing up behind Jason Green, whilst Mark Richards is still the only car that sits behind the safety car. Now, none of them can come in on this lap. They have to pass the board. The board should be hung out over the pit lane, and yeah, you could just see the board was there. Safety car, right, safety car is down at Graham Hill Bend now, so there's about, a quarter of a lap distance between the safety car and the train. The drivers are suited and booted and ready to go, and we just need to wait for the signal. This next lap through is the first point at which anybody can pit. So there is the train of cars with Jason Green at the head of it. Shane Stoney still trying to usher him along as quickly as he possibly can. And for the safety car, that will be heading down towards Hawthorne, I would have thought, currently. So Shane Stoney still being rather animated. He's just raising his hand and just saying, come on, we need to catch up. We've got to try and catch the safety car to a larger degree than we are. They're almost there, though. It's taken an extra lap or so, but not that much longer, I don't think, before the safety car is caught now by this train of cars. And then we should be able to, once they're all formed up behind the safety car. I think Rod Goodman's car is out of harm's way now at Paddock Hill Bend, so that means that the circuit is clear, and once the train is fully forward we can get racing back underway. But I strongly suspect that once we go green flag again, that a good chunk of these cars are going to dive their way into the pit lane and serve their success seconds. So there's the safety car. Mark Richards will be watching his mirrors and wondering where everybody is. Of course, he'll be blissfully unaware as to where everybody else is on the field. It might be contact between the team that will be advising him as to what's going on, Mark Richards, but again, there's still work for him to be done, to be doing. Right, there we go. We're almost there now, aren't we? We've almost got the train of cars behind the safety car. It's taken a few moments, but it does look as though we are now almost at the point that we might be able to go green. Are we going to see the lights out on the safety car this time through, or are we going to get another lap behind the safety car? Let's hope not. I think we might be going for green flag this time through, so we are going, and everybody's diving for the pit lane. Right, so we've been waiting for the train to all catch up, and now we go safety car. All of the train that we're trying to catch up all dive for the pit lane at the same time, apart from the race leader Mark Richards and Jason Rishover. So 2 cars out there and circulating, and everybody now diving for the pit lane. Shane Stoney is going to try and come to a halt. Remember, he's got no additional time penalty to worry about. Nearest towards pit lane exit is going to be Jason Green. The number 49 car comes to a halt. Now there will be a change of driver. Jason Green will jump out and hand over to Neil Glover. In the background you can see the white car with the red flashes. Tom Ashton out of the car and chatting to Auden Edmondson. But for Shane Stoney, he is just waiting for the clock to tick down, chatting to the mechanics who will be adjusting the tyre pressures. Out jumps Jason Green, in jumps Neil Glover. In goes the different seat insert, such as the different sizes of the drivers, just to make sure that it's a snug fit in the seat. And then seat belts will be done up by a combination of co-driver and team members. Adjustment of tyre pressures where needed as well. And remember, not all of these cars that came into the pit lane at the same time will leave at the same time. Shane Stoney should be the first of those to get going again, because he's got no additional time penalty to worry about. Mark Richards, in the meantime, in the lead of the race, pressing on with a very clear track ahead of him, which means that he could just push immediately and see whether he can try and overcome what is an additional 20 seconds he will have to spend in the pit. So this safety car has worked terribly hard on Mark Richards and has really compromised his race. It has worked beautifully as far as Shane Stoney is concerned, because he should be able to take up the lead of the race as and when we've cycled through the pit stops. Had it not have been for the safety car, he might have struggled, because Mark Richards was leading the race, had a 17.5 second advantage, and was looking as though he'd almost done enough to grab the lead of the race. Despite the 20 seconds addition, he was going to have to remain stationary. So the pit lane that was full is now empty, and they can all crack on again for part 2 of this race. So there's the number 7 car. That's now Auden Edmondson that is behind the wheel of it, the man who bases himself at Garberg, which is in just south of Reykjavik, so it's only just south of the capital city. Reykjavik, sort of on the west coast of Iceland. But Auden Edmondson, company owner, who's really only just done track days in the past. Mark Richards, twice a race winner, former Radical SR1 Cup racer, the man who's involved in private equity in the city, in London, so very much at his local circuit, the 34-year-old, looking as though he is going to try and push as hard as he can. There's only another 3 minutes of the pit window being open as well, so the pit window will close with 20 minutes of the race remaining. So Mark Richards can pit either this lap or the next, or possibly even the one after that. He's not going to pit this lap, so he's going to continue and conclude lap number 15, and he's going to have a reasonable lead over Jason Rishover, who is up to second at the moment. But those are the 2 cars that have not pitted in this race as yet. So there goes number 52. On to lap number 16. Jason Rishover in second place is now 14.2 seconds adrift in second position. And for both of these cars, they also have success seconds to serve as well. Mark Richards has got 20 success seconds as a result of his win in this equivalent pit stop race yesterday. Jason Rishover, who is second, also has 15 seconds to serve in the pit lane, success seconds, as a result of his finish in second position in this equivalent race yesterday. There's the number 28 car, that is Elliot Goodman. He has now slipped to 6th place, Elliott. He had an extra 10 seconds to spend in the pit lane, so that's why he's dropped himself down through the order. John McLeod has got ahead of him at the wheel of that white car because John stopped for 5 seconds less in the pits, and that's why they've now had that shuffle of the order. Arden Goodmanson leading the teams category by a full lap over that car now, which is the number 49 car in the hands of Neil Glover, so they might look as though they're close in the teams category, but there is a full lap between those two cars, first and second in their particular categories. So down towards Hawthorn they will go. The race leader Mark Richards, is he going to pit this time through? Jason Rishover might pit. Yeah, Mark Richards is in. So Mark Richards, the race leader, comes into the pit lane. Remember, he's got to remain stationary for 45 seconds plus the additional 20 success seconds that he grabbed as a result of that win yesterday. If you win the pit stop race, 20 seconds for the win. Second place gets 15, third gets 10, and fourth and fifth both get the same, which is 5 seconds. And the only other car that hasn't pitted, Jason Rishover, also comes in. He's got an extra 15 seconds to remain stationary. So tyre pressures, as you can see, being adjusted. The mechanics just double checking that everything is good with the cars, taking a little bit of air pressure out just to try and bring the tyre back into its key operating temperatures and pressures. And then from there, once the clock has ticked away, they'll be able to crack on with the race once more. The fight that we're looking at is for 5th and 6th place. John McLeod under pressure from Elliott Goodman. Elliott was ahead before the pit stops, but as I suggested, the car behind, the black car with its gold and its red flashes, Elliott Goodman was stationary for 5 seconds longer than the number 14 car, and that was why they have leapfrogged each other over the course of the pit stop window. So clock still ticking for those in the pit lane. Out comes one of the mechanics with some additional things to, I think it's wiping the visor, is it? Yes, some visor cleaner going on Jason Rishover's car. Mixture of oil and detritus and a little bit of spray, of course, from the rain that fell. All done within the timescale. So 360 Racing happy that they've done what they need to do, have serviced the car, sorted the driver, cleaned his visor, and now very shortly he'll head back into the race. But for what is 5th and 6th place, the battle is on. John McLeod under pressure from Elliott Goodman, who has closed up again over the course of this lap. Elliott Goodman was 1/10 of a second quicker in the first sector. He was 7/10 of a second quicker in the second sector, so he's closed up to the tune of 0.8 of a second. Back out of the pit lane goes the car of Mark Richards, but where has he rejoined relative to Shane Stoney is the big question. So through goes John McLeod. There is Jason Rishover joining the circuit. He's going to join directly ahead of John McLeod and Elliott Goodman. So Rishover has been able to rejoin ahead of two cars that he would be hopeful that he could avoid having to do battle with. And that's been a good performance from Jason Rishover, pushing hard when he had clear track after the safety car had gone in, has really aided his cause at this stage. John McLeod still with his hands rather full of Elliott Goodman. Elliott Goodman's had a third place in class this weekend. He's had a second place in class, but it doesn't look as though the win is going to come his way, unfortunately, in this one. Such has been the pace that Shane Stoney and Mark Richards have had throughout the course of the weekend. And Shane Stoney, I think, will have gone through to take up the lead of the race, whilst this battle for what is 4th, 5th and 6th heads up for the 17th time towards Hawthorn Bend. Pit window closed a minute or so ago. Matters not, everybody has now conducted their mandatory pit stops. The rain has long gone, the circuit is now fully dried again, and therefore the lap times are just starting to come back down again now. Still a few damp patches, as you can see, through the wooded section of the Grand Prix circuit, in particularly through Sheen Curve and Dingle Dell, which I don't think had the same extent of rain as other parts of the circuit, but it's just taking longer to dry because it's more in the shade. So John McLeod doing a good job here of keeping Elliott Goodman behind. Now, Elliott Goodman came into this weekend 4th in the championship. John was 6th in the championship. Up towards the braking area for Paddock Hill Bend they'll go. Elliott Goodman's got the inside line. Can he squeeze his way through? No, John McLeod just gets the door closed. So no opportunity there for Elliott Goodman to take the place, but he showed his hand there for the first time as they now head into the braking area for Druids. All of this is just allowing Jason Rishover up the road to pull away. Shane Stoney now leads the race by 7 seconds from Mark Richards and is actually circulating as the quickest car that we've got out there. Elliott Goodman having another little nibble at John McLeod. That's the wide line going in towards Surtees. Might try and get a later turn in an apex to try and cut back on the exit, but John McLeod is wise to that. So it's all to do with the momentum now that you get coming off the corner. And has Elliot Goodman got more momentum than John McLeod to try anything heading down in towards Hawthorne? No, he's just too far away as they head up towards the right-hander out on the back part of the lap. Another potential opportunity heading in towards Westfield Corner, but again John McLeod was just watching his mirrors and making sure he covered off any move from Elliot Goodman. So John McLeod desperate to try and hang on to the position as they turn their way through Sheen Curve. It's the 51-year-old from London, the entrepreneur, former Caterham racer, John McLeod, still managing to keep the 25-year-old Elliot Goodman behind at this stage. And it's been a good fight for the last few laps as this one. So they are now heading up towards the start of lap number 20, this pair. So through and over the start-finish line, another lap completed. In towards the right-hander at Paddock Hill Bend. The gap between the pair of them has been hovering around a couple of tenths of a second for the last lap or so, but it's still the number 14 car that sits there in 5th place. Number 28, Elliot Goodman, is there in 6th position. So down towards the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend. Along the Cooper Straight, you can see Jason Rishover just disappearing out of shot as he continually now, having come out of the pit lane ahead of this pair, is just able to pull away. The squabbling just slowing them up a little bit. Relative lap times, Jason Rishover, a 1 minute 30 was his last lap. The pair behind, 3 seconds slower now, 1 minute 33 from John McLeod and Elliot Goodman. I think Elliot Goodman could lap quicker. The problem is he's just bottled up the car behind and can't at the moment try and work out exactly where he might be able to thread his way through. So 15 minutes just under, or just over rather, of the race to go. Up towards the right-hander at Sheen Curve. Elliot Goodman not going to try anything here up at Stirling's. Try and get a good fight coming off the corner and see whether he can do anything on the run down towards Clearways Corner. Again, just showing the nose of the car to John McLeod, but too far away, so there's no opportunity to do anything there. So he shall sit behind yet again. And with 15 minutes to go, that's another lap now concluded, and another lap where Elliot Goodman is still bottled up behind John McLeod. We saw John doing a really good job earlier on over the course of this weekend, where he hasn't necessarily had the outright pace, but his skill and experience have just allowed him to position the car to make it very difficult for cars to work their way through. That's exactly what he was doing in the early stages of the race, wasn't it? Where he was holding up this big train of cars in the early stages of the race behind him before Shane Stoney opened up the door and went through. But even though Shane Stoney had grabbed the place, John McLeod then managed to keep everybody else behind until the safety car came out, of course, and then the pit window opened. Lead advantage, Shane Stoney. He said he wanted to win this race. Well, he is now 19 seconds up the road from Mark Richards. This is the car that's in second place, Mark Richards. Doesn't look as though it's going to be a trio of wins for him. There's number 80, which is Peter Tyler. Now he is sitting in third position, Peter Tyler. So Peter on potentially for one of his best results of the season. He was another car that had no additional success seconds to worry about, Peter Tyler. The best result we've seen for him over the course of this season was a solitary 5th position. And at the moment, he's on for a podium for the first time. 5th and 6th still together. John McLeod cannot shake away Elliot Goodman. And despite the fact that Elliot has always been within, a couple of tenths of a second or so for the last few laps, he's still never really had a great opportunity. There was one little glimmer of hope a few laps ago up towards Paddock Hill Bend, but this time again he's just too far away as they head in towards the braking area, and now are about to turn their way through the right-hander where the circuit plunges back downhill again. Elliot Goodman bouncing over the curbs on the exit of the corner, but again he's not going to be close enough to try anything on the run through the right-hander at Druids. So this is the best fight that we've got on the circuit currently. It's the closest battle that we've got. Shane Stoney still leading. Mark Richards still second. Peter Tyler in potentially a season's best 3rd place. Jason Rishover in 4th. John McLeod and Elliot Goodman, the two cars we're concentrating on, fighting over 4th and 5th place. In 5th and 6th place. In 7th place is Auden Goodmanson. And 8th place at this stage is going to be Neil Glover, who is the last of the runners. Rod Goodman, of course, having deposited his car in the gravel trap, started the race late with whatever the problem was, didn't do that many laps, then got caught out in the changing conditions as the rain fell, but all of the cars still on their slick tyres, which is the tyre that's best suited to the circuit. I did think there might be a few that would roll the dice, and no, for the moment they all stuck with it. And for Shane Stoney, the safety car coming out really has given him the perfect opportunity to head towards, potentially 12 minutes away yet still, a victory, and that for him would only be his second victory of the season. Such has been the dominance of Marcus Clutton, who wrapped up the championship last weekend at Snetterton and has therefore opted not to compete this weekend. The wins have been difficult to come by for people. John McLeod still doing a good job of keeping Elliot Goodman at bay. There's still just 0.2 of a second between the pair of them. But for Elliot Goodman, the man from Northampton, former kart racer, also raced in the Radical SR1 Cup, despite everything that he's throwing at John McLeod, he's not as yet been able to force John into a mistake, and I think at the moment that's probably what he's more reliant on. He's not quite close enough to try on pure pace to try and overtake. Again, you can see he's just way too far away as they head up towards the braking area for Hawthorns. So we're fast heading towards the final 10 minutes of this race, so we're 4/5 of the way through it almost. Shane Stoney looking for a victory. If he wins this race, Shane Stoney, fastest lap, an additional point is going the way of Mark Richards. So if Shane Stoney hangs on to the lead of the race, he would finish on 672 points in the championship. For Jason Rishover, he would finish 4th in class, so he would finish up on 654 points. So there'd be 18 points between the pair of them for 2nd and 3rd in the championship. John McLeod back over the start-finish line. Elliot Goodman as close as he's been up towards Paddock Hill Bend for the last few laps. But again, agonisingly close, but still not able to prise the door open. Again, he closes up on the brakes as they head up towards the right-hander at Druids. But we have not seen any chink in the armour at all with John McLeod. He has just coped with the pressure. He's driven his own race. He will be checking his mirrors every now and again, but focusing on the road ahead. The more you start to look in your mirrors, the more you end up slowing yourself up, and the more you put yourself under pressure. If you concentrate on the road ahead and just get cleanly off the corners, you almost don't need to check what's going on behind, because you know the car behind is not going to have the opportunity to catch up. There goes Jason Rishover through shot. That's the car in 4th place. Here's 5th and 6th heading towards us now. Still the white car of John McLeod, its blue flashes ahead of the black and gold and red machine of Elliot Goodman, bouncing over the curbs as they turn their way in towards Westfield Corner, and are now only another couple of corners away from completing another lap. This is lap number 23 that they are on currently. Elliot Goodman, is he going to have a go this time? He looked about it, thought about it for the first time in a while maybe, thinking that there was half an opportunity. John McLeod again gets cleanly off Stirling's Bend, and that means that again Elliot Goodman is just too far away again as they head into the braking area for Clearways Corner. Good run out of Clearways though, presents a possibility again as they head up towards Paddock Hill Bend. He's closing in the slipstream as they head up towards the braking area for Paddock Hill. Again, just too far away again. John McLeod, driving beautifully well, has not put a wheel wrong as yet. Our race leader Shane Stoney is looking as though he's on for a very dominant win in the end. 23, nearly 24 seconds that he leads by now. Mark Richards, who was hoping to do the treble, is not going to go home with a match ball by the look of things. Just going to come up short. Through the left-hander at Surtees. 8 minutes of the race to go. Mark Richards in 2nd place, as we say, now 23, nearly 24 seconds behind the race leader. Still pushing hard. He still at the moment is going to have the bragging rights of setting the fastest lap in the race, which nets him an additional championship point. So 70 points for 2nd place, plus the extra one for the fastest lap, plus the extra one he would get for pole position as well in this one. So 72 points will be his haul. Now, Elliot Goodman looking as though he's now starting to get slightly more frustrated with John McLeod. Not that John's doing anything wrong, it's just that Elliot's been bottled up behind there and hasn't as yet got an answer to the pace of John McLeod. So through and up towards a conclusion of what will be lap number 24 they make their way. 7 minutes and 20 seconds of the race still to go. We squeezed 33 laps out of yesterday's race. The safety car period means that we're probably not going to quite get to that number of laps here today. Shane Stoney are winning the final round of the championship particularly after the difficult weekend he's had, really. So came into this weekend lying second in the championship, will finish the season potentially second in the championship if he stays where he is, and after 2 poor race results, to grab a win, only your second of the season in the final race, at least means that you finish the season on a high, but we're still a few laps away from that as yet. So there is Mark Richards, second position. Shane Stoney now picks up the extra point for the fastest lap as well, so it's no longer going the way of that car there, number 52, because Shane Stoney is just done a 1 minute 27.536 second lap as Shane Stoney, so he might be leading by a country mile at this stage, but he's still pushing hard, and as the circuit continues to dry now, it's clearly almost back to perfect conditions again, because so late in the race after the rain, we've now got a fastest lap of the race. So the fuel load has come down, but the tyres have got a bit more wear on them. But all of the contributory factors, including the drying circuit, mean that Shane Stoney now is leading by 26 seconds and picks up that extra point. John McLeod still cannot shake away. Shadowing every lap has been Elliot Goodman, but there is nothing at all that has changed for 5th and 6th place. So through the right-hander at Paddock Hill Bend and start to climb Halewood Hill. Elliot Goodman, jinks out from behind, thought about having a quick look, but again, I think more than anything that was a tactic to try and distract John McLeod more than anything. Didn't work. If anything, Elliot Goodman lost a bit more time as a result of trying that move. The two of them were separated still by a little more than a quarter of a second as they came over the start-finish line. And it did, that cost Elliot Goodman about 0.3 of a second through that first sector of the lap. Doesn't sound much, does it? But trying to distract the driver ahead is always a good tactic, as long as it doesn't cost you time, and it did on that occasion. It cost Elliot Goodman time, and you can see visually now as they come down in towards Hawthorne that the gap has opened up between the pair of them. A bit more daylight there now, which means that Elliot Goodman's going to have to push for the second part of the lap to try and close it up, and that's exactly what he's doing, starting to bring it to John McLeod again. All of that deficit has been made up. John McLeod, I think, now is getting a little bit more worried with what's going on behind him. Elliot Goodman's had a good middle sector of the lap, and he is now closed up by 0.2 of a second on that middle sector. So 4.5 minutes of the race to go. The shadows of the trees and the MSV building in the background getting longer as the sun starts to begin to descend. Still plenty of time to squeeze in this race and some more supporting races that we've got here at Brands Hatch before the daylight disappears. But for John McLeod, he is looking to try and see whether he can hang on to 5th position. John, over the course of this weekend, was on the podium, wasn't he, earlier on? He finished in 3rd place in the sprint race that we had earlier on. In this equivalent race yesterday, he finished 5th on the road, which would have been 4th in the solo class for the single drivers. And over the course of this season, John McLeod, who's been a regular in the Radical Championship for a good number of years now, his best overall result in the season has been 4th places. 4th at Donington, 4th at Snetterton, and that 3rd earlier on today is therefore his sole trip to the podium so far. At the moment, he'll do well to hang on to 5th here, because Elliot Goodman has been an ever-present danger over the course of the last, nearly 20 minutes now. So here is our race leader, Shane Stoney, now on to lap number 28. He will have the lap that he's on and 2 more thereafter. So next time he comes over the start-finish line, he should be onto the penultimate lap of the race. And he's got now nearly a 30-second advantage between himself and twice a race winner this weekend, Mark Richards. Shane Stoney is the reigning Radical SR1 Cup champion, but only for another couple of weeks, really. He claimed that championship in 2019. The 2020 Radical SR1 Cup has not been decided this weekend here at Brands Hatch. It will go to the final weekend of racing, so Shane Stoney can hang on to that crown for another couple of weeks at least, and will replace it with, at the end of this one, a vice champion's crown in the Radical Challenge Championship, for which, if he stays where he is, it's going to be ultimately, after a difficult weekend, a comfortable runners-up spot in the championship after the dominance of Marcus Clutton, the champion, who was crowned a couple of weekends ago at Snetterton. John McLeod not under the same amount of pressure from Elliot Goodman as he has been for the last few laps. The gap between the pair of them was up to 0.4 of a second. Here is our second place car, Mark Richards, 30 seconds behind the race leader. But in the tricky conditions, no problems or part spins for Mark Richards in this race today. Did have a part spin in the endurance race yesterday, but Shane Stoney is now onto his penultimate lap of the race. So along the Cooper Straight for the penultimate time. One more lap to go after this one. No traffic for him to really worry about. The Yorkshireman, who's still in his 20s, Shane Stoney, won the Ginetta GT4 Championship, or G40 Championship, a season or so ago. Also a former Mini Challenge champion is Shane Stoney. He is more than on course to grab a win, and only his second win of the season, and in the course wrap up runners-up spot in the championship for himself and Raw Motorsport, Rob Weldon's team, who prepare several cars for this championship and for others as well. Rob himself a very, very quick Radical racer. So John McLeod still just can't shake away Elliot Goodman, who's come back at him again over the course of the last lap. So the gap's now down to 0.3 of a second between the cars in 5th and 6th position. They've got, the lap that they're on and one more thereafter to try and work out as to who's going to finish in 5th and 6th place overall. The leading team car is in 7th place still at this stage, which is the car that was started by Tom Ashton and now has Auden Goodmanson behind the wheel. But for Shane Stoney, our race leader, he is now onto the last lap of the race, and the last lap for the 2020 Radical Challenge Championship season. Downhill in towards the braking area for the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend goes Shane Stoney. As we say, was somewhat aided in this race by the safety car. He knew that he would stop in the pit lane for 20 seconds less than Mark Richards. Mark Richards had, at the time the safety car came out, opened up a 17-second advantage, but all of that was whittled down to not a great deal by the safety car. And as Shane Stoney comes over the start-finish line, he is going to see the checkered flag next time through. Mark Richards in second place now, just over 30 seconds behind, 30.192 seconds behind our race leader Shane Stoney. It's still either way been a solid weekend for Mark Richards, who we haven't seen as much of in the 2020 season as we would have liked. We saw him at Alton Park in Cheshire, we saw him at Silverstone in Northamptonshire. He didn't appear at Donington Park, which is on the Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire, Derbyshire border. He did appear in Norfolk last weekend. Didn't appear in Norfolk either last weekend at Snetterton, but he's back with a bounce this weekend. And bouncing back after a difficult weekend is this man here. Shane Stoney is going to come through over the start-finish line and claim the final victory of the 2020 Radical Challenge Championship season, and claims not only his second win of the season, but subject to official confirmation, that will give him runners-up spot in the 2020 Championship season. He said he wanted to win this one. He spoke to Kevin Harris in the assembly area earlier, saying he wanted to finish on a high, he wanted to grab a win. And with a little bit of luck from the safety car, but some very good driving to then build up a 30-second advantage in the end, he comes through to claim the win from this car here, Mark Richards. 2 wins and a second this weekend. He comes through to finish in second position, and we'll wait the arrival of Peter Tyler, who should come through and finish in third place. And Peter is on for his best result of the 2020 season, Peter Tyler, who's driven very well, I've got to say, in this race. The driver who stepped up from the Radical SR1 Cup will come through and now finish in third place. So congratulations to Peter Tyler as the cars head in towards the Parc Fermé area. Over the start-finish line comes now that fight that we've been concentrating on. Jason Rishover's taken the checker flag, but John McLeod finishes in 5th place. Elliot Goodman, despite all of the pressure, ultimately had to settle for 6th position. And then the leading car in the teams category, which is Tom Ashton and Auden Goodmanson, are yet to take the checkered flag and finish in 7th place. So that is it for the 2020 Radical Challenge Championship season. The cars heading in towards the pit lane area. We unfortunately won't get the opportunity to grab a word with any of the drivers. There are no podium ceremonies because of social distancing still and COVID restrictions that are in place, but we will of course be looking forward now to an exciting 2021 Radical Challenge Championship season. So just to confirm the results with you then, it's a win for number 89 Shane Stoney. Second is Mark Richards, and third place is Peter Tyler with a season's best finish and his first podium of the year. Fourth place was Jason Rishover, fifth place was John McLeod, and in sixth place it was Elliot Goodman. The leading team's car, Tom Ashton and Auden Goodmanson, finished in seventh place. Eighth place was the number 49 car, which was the car that Neil Glover shared with Jason Green. Jason Green started the car, Neil Glover bringing it towards the checkered flag, and sadly there was retirement for Rod Goodman, who started the race late and then got caught out by the tricky conditions here at Brands Hatch. So that's all from Brands Hatch. That's all from the Radical Challenge Championship for 2020. So from myself here and all of the Radical Challenge Championship team, thanks for joining us, and we will catch you again very soon in 2021. Until then, it's goodbye.